Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtar Shatishvar Chila Bhakti Viranta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Shri Gurudev Ki Jai Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtar Shatishvar Chila Bhakti Viranta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtar Shatishvar Chila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtar Shatishvar Chila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtar Shatishvar Chila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitil Pṛthu Mahārāja Shri Gaurkishore Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Pṛthu Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Rupa Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadash Raghunath Shar Gosai Prabhu Ki Jai Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai नाम अक्षय श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल मथुर वृंदावन धाम की जय सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदात गिरिराज महाराज की जय श्री राधा कुंज श्याम कुंज की जय श्री गंगा देवी की जय श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय श्री भक्ति देवी की जय श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाया की जय श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल. Right, sharing my screen. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद्-भागवतम की जय. Dandava pranam Kagaraj ji, Indira Mata ji, Rup Manjari, and whoever else is there. It just says Facebook user. As I mentioned before, for some reason in the Gaudiya Kirtan live group, it only doesn't show people's names for me on this program Restream. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Vedanta Narayaniti Namine. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yang Pravrajantam Anupetam Apeta Krityam Dvaipayano Virahakatara Arjuhava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravobhinedu Sangsarva Bhuta Hridayam Munimanatosmi. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Shrinvatang Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridantasto Yabhadrani Vidhunoti Suritsatam. Nashta Prayeshvavadreshu Nityang Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Tavai vasmi na jivami tvaya vina iti vigyaya radhe tvam nayamam charanantikam. Bhaktya vihina aparada lakshay kshiptashtakama ditarangamadhe kripamai tvam sharanam prapanna vrinde namaste charanaravindam. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. "22. Wish I could add bookmarks to this. Okay, so Lord Vishnu's appearance in the sacrificial arena of Maharaj Pṛthu. Lord Vishnu instructs Pṛthu Mahārāja, "Please forgive Indra. Knowledgeable and detached persons are not malicious towards others and are not carried away by Maya. Knowledge of the soul and supersoul makes one unaffected by the modes. He serves me by occupational duties and attains peace and perfect vision. Understanding the soul's real position makes one eligible for liberation. Protect the citizens and derive resultant benefits. I am pleased with you. Ask for any benediction." Then Pṛthu accepts the instructions, and Indra begs forgiveness. Then, Pṛthu Mahārāja, we saw the picture yesterday that Indira Mataji shared with us of Pṛthu Mahārāja going to, did he hug him? I don't remember how he did it, but let's just read from this point on. 17. Alright, so Pṛthu Mahārāja accepted the instructions of the Lord on his head. Indra was ashamed of his own activities and touched Pṛthu's feet. Pṛthu gave up all hatred and embraced Indra. Pṛthu then worshipped the lotus feet of the Lord with increasing ecstasy. The Lord was just about to leave, but being the well-wisher of the devotees and greatly inclined towards Pṛthu, he did not depart. His eyes full of tears and voice choked up, Pṛthu could neither see nor address the Lord. Embracing him in his heart, he stood with folded hands. The Lord's feet touched the ground, and he rested his hand on Garuda's shoulder. Wiping his tears, Pṛthu saw the Lord, but wasn't fully satisfied by looking at him. Thus he offered the following prayers. Prayers of Pṛthu Mahārāja. Oh, and just a note for those who might be concerned. Today we're only reading 4,300 words. Normally we read 600 words. So even though I started very late today, we will probably finish early. Just letting you know. And then the next 3 days we'll be reading 6,000 words every day, so I have to be on time. Worthless benedictions, like liberation. Pṛthu Mahārāja said, "O best of benedictors, how can a learned person ask you for benedictions meant for those bewildered by the material modes? They are available even for people in hellish conditions. Although you are the Lord of liberation, I do not ask for such benedictions. I never want such benedictions as liberation, in which there is no nectarian beverage of your lotus feet. Please give me at least 1,000,000 ears to hear your glories coming from the hearts of your pure devotees through their mouths." Transcendental vibration from the mouths of great devotees carries the aroma of saffron dust of your lotus feet. The saffron dust of your lotus feet. By hearing it, the forgetful living entities, even bad yogis, Gradually remember their eternal relationship with you. Other benedictions are unnecessary. If one somehow hears your auspicious glories and association of devotees even once, he cannot give up that association or glorification unless he is an animal. Even Lakshmi Devi desires to hear your unlimited glories. Desire to serve your lotus feet. O Supreme Person, reservoir of all transcendental qualities, I desire to serve your lotus feet just like Lakshmi, but I'm afraid we would compete and quarrel over the service to a single master. And there's Srila Prabhupada wrote in his purport that Lakshmi is in Madhurya Bhav, while Pṛthu Mahārāja is in Dasya Bhav. So there was no question of his competing with her on the platform of Madhurya. You will take my side. Lakshmi, the mother of the universe, may be angry with me for desiring her service. Yet I am hopeful that you will take my part, for you are affectionate to the poor and magnify even insignificant service to you. And you can do without her, as you are self-sufficient. There's a note here. Pṛthu expresses his vira bhakti, desire for competition in relation to Lakshmi. He wonders if he will quarrel with Lakshmi while performing bhakti, just as he quarreled with Indra while doing karma. Link. Not only I, but all of your devotees request this benediction of service. Great devotees render devotional service unto you, who destroy the illusions of the material existence. They have no reason to take your shelter except to constantly remember your lotus feet. The Lord might say, then why do you ask my devotees to request benedictions? The Lord might say, then why do I ask my devotees to request benedictions? Your words, ask for a benediction, and the allurements you offer in the Vedas are certainly bewildering to the people in general who thus engage in karma repeatedly. Kindly bestow whatever you think is best for me. Ignorant living beings in this world, forgetful of their real constitutional position, always desire material happiness. Therefore, please bestow upon me whatever you think is best for me, without asking, just like a father who acts for the benefit of his son. The Lord offers benedictions to Pṛthu and departs. The Lord says, may you have bhakti to me. Only by such purity of purpose as yourself intelligently expressed can one cross over my insurmountable maya. Note, Pṛthu requested for the most beneficial thing. The Lord awarded bhakti, which concludes that nothing but bhakti is the most beneficial. The Lord said, execute my orders carefully, and don't be misled by anything. Anyone who carries out my orders faithfully will always find good fortune. The Lord appreciated the meaningful prayers of Pṛthu, and after being properly worshipped, blessed him and decided to leave. Then Pṛthu worshipped the demigods, sages, pitris, gandharvas, siddhas, charanas, and others, with his sweet words and wealth, thinking of them as representatives of the Lord. Then all of them returned to their abodes. The Lord, who captivated the minds of the kings and priests, also returned. Although not an object of material vision, the Lord revealed himself to Pṛthu. Pṛthu offered obeisances to the Lord and returned to his home. Instructions by Maharaj Pṛthu. The citizens welcome Pṛthu Mahārāja. Alright, so now we'll begin. Oh, and Pradyumna is asking, both are Shaktivesh avatar. Can one say that Pṛthu Mahārāja is like Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada? I was actually thinking the same thing, because, Srila Sridhar Goswami Maharaj declared that Srila Prabhupada is a Shaktivesh avatar. And I've also heard it mentioned that he's empowered with the Shakti of Nityananda Prabhu. In Bhagavatamrita Kana, it describes all the different Avesh avatars, Shaktivesh avatars. And so it describes the 4 Kumaras. I haven't actually read it. I just remember someone speaking about it. But it talks about Pṛthu Mahārāja and Kumaras, and I forgot who else, but it goes through different Shaktivesh avatars, and it explains what particular Shakti they're invested with. And so Srila Prabhupada is invested with, and so I forgot, which Shakti was Pṛthu Mahārāja invested with? That'd be something good to look up. I'll look that up later. But so I guess, in that way, although they are different because every one of them are invested with a different Shakti. But Srila Prabhupada is invested with, like Srila Sridhar Goswami Maharaj said, Nityananda Prabhu's Shakti. Therefore, he was able to do such an extraordinary thing that nobody else was able to do since the time of Mahaprabhu. Right. Chapter 21. Instructions by Maharaj Pṛthu. Maitreya Uvacha Muktikai Kusuma Sragbhir Dukulai Swarnatoranai Mahasura Bibhir Drupar Manditam Tatra Tatra Vai. The great sage Maitreya told Vidura, when the king entered his city, it was very beautifully decorated to receive him with pearls, flower garlands, beautiful cloth, and golden gates, and the entire city was perfumed with highly fragrant incense. Oh, I think yesterday Indira Mataji posted a picture of this. I'll open up the picture in a second. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Real opulence is supplied by natural gifts such as gold, silver, pearls, valuable stones, fresh flowers, trees, and silken cloth. Thus, the Vedic civilization recommends opulence and decoration with these natural gifts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such opulence immediately changes the condition of the mind, and the entire atmosphere becomes spiritualized. King Pṛthu's capital was decorated with such highly opulent decorations. Should we look now? Let's look now. Daily Bhagavatam. See, there's the cloth, and I think there's going to be more descriptions, but see, there's the ladies on top of the roof. Alright. Chandana Gurta Yardra Ratya Chatvara Margavat Pushpakshata Palaistat Tokmar Lajar Achir Birarchitam. Fragrant water distilled from sandalwood and aguru herb was sprinkled everywhere on the lanes, roads, and small parks throughout the city, and everywhere were decorations of unbroken fruits, flowers, wetted grains, varied minerals, and lamps, all presented as auspicious paraphernalia. Savrindai kadali stambhai pugapotai parishkritam taru pallavamala sarvata samalankritam. At the street crossings there were bunches of fruits and flowers, as well as pillars of banana trees and betel nut branches. All these combined decorations everywhere looked very attractive. Prajastam Deepabalibhi Sambrita Shesha Mangalai Abhiyur Mrishta Kanyascha Mrishta Kundalamandita. Let's see if there's any banana trees in the picture. Let's see. As the king entered the gate of the city, all the citizens received him with many auspicious articles like lamps, flowers, and yogurt.
The king was also received by many beautiful unmarried girls whose bodies were bedecked with various ornaments, especially with earrings which collided with one another. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Offerings of natural products such as betel nuts, bananas, newly grown wheat, paddy, yogurt, and vermilion, carried by the citizens and scattered throughout the city, are all auspicious paraphernalia according to Vedic civilization for receiving a prominent guest like a bridegroom, king, or spiritual master. Similarly, a welcome offered by unmarried girls who are internally and externally clean and are dressed in nice garments and ornaments is also auspicious. Kumari, or unmarried girls, untouched by the hand of any member of the opposite sex, are auspicious members of society. Even today, in Hindu society, the most conservative families do not allow unmarried girls to go out freely or mix with boys. They are very carefully protected by their parents while unmarried. After marriage, they are protected by their young husbands, and when elderly, they are protected by their children. When thus protected, women as a class remain an always auspicious source of energy to man. Shankadundu vigoshena brahmagoshena chartvijam vivesha bhavanam vira stuyamano gatasmaya. When the king entered the palace, conch shells and kettle drums were sounded, priests chanted Vedic mantras, and professional reciters offered different prayers. But in spite of all this ceremony to welcome him, the king was not the least bit affected. Purport. The reception given to the king was full of opulence, yet he did not become proud. It is said, therefore, that great personalities of power and opulence never become proud, and the example is given that a tree which is full of fruits and flowers does not stand erect in pride, but instead bends downwards to show submissiveness. This is a sign of the wonderful character of great personalities. That's a really nice example, huh? Pujita pujayamasa tatra mahayasha Puranjana padangstangstan prita priya paraprada. Both the important citizens and the common citizens welcomed the king very heartedly, and he also bestowed upon them their desired blessings. Purport. A responsible king was always approachable by his citizens. Generally, the citizens, great and common, all had an aspiration to see the king and take benediction from him. The king knew this, and therefore whenever he met the citizens, he immediately fulfilled their desires or mitigated their grievances. In such dealings, a responsible monarchy is better than a so-called democratic government, in which no one is responsible to mitigate the grievances of the citizens, who are unable to personally meet the supreme executive head. In a responsible monarchy, the citizens had no grievances against the government, and even if they did, they could approach the king directly for immediate satisfaction. God, I'm having a hard time with this one. Whatever. Karmani bhuyangsi mahan mahatma kurvan shasha sa vani mandalam yasha spitam nidhaya ruruhe param padam. My God. King Pṛthu was greater than the greatest soul and was therefore worshipable by everyone. He performed many glorious activities in ruling over the surface of the world and was always magnanimous. After achieving such great success and a reputation which spread throughout the universe, he at last obtained the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. A responsible king or chief executive has many responsible duties to attend to in ruling over the citizens. The most important duty of the monarch or the government is to perform various sacrifices as enjoined in the Vedic literatures. The next duty of the king is to see that every citizen executes the prescribed duties for his particular community. It is the king's duty to see that everyone perfectly executes the duties prescribed for the Varna and Ashram divisions of society. Besides that, as exemplified by King Pṛthu, he must develop the earth for the greatest possible production of food grades. There are different types of great personalities. Some are positive great personalities, some are comparative, and some superlative. But King Pṛthu exceeded all of them. He is therefore described here as Mahatma, greater than the greatest. Maharaj Pṛthu was a Kshatriya, and he discharged his Kshatriya duties perfectly. Similarly, Brahmins, Vaishyas, and Shudras can discharge their respective duties perfectly and thus attain the ultimate end of life, and thus, at the ultimate end of life, be promoted to the transcendental world, which is called Param Padam. Param Padam, or the Vaikuntha planets, can be achieved only by devotional service. The impersonal Brahman region is also called Param Padam, but unless one is attached to the personality of Godhead, one must again fall down to the material world from the impersonal Param Padam situation. It is said, therefore, Aruhya Krichrena Param Padam Tata. The impersonalists endeavor very strenuously to achieve the Param Padam, or impersonal Brahmajyoti, but unfortunately, being bereft of a relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they come down again to the material world. If one flies in outer space, he can go very high up, but unless he reaches a planet, he must come down again to earth. Similarly, because the impersonalists who reach the Param Padam of the impersonal Brahmajyoti do not enter into the Vaikuntha planets, they come down again to this material world and are given shelter in one of the material planets. Although they may attain Brahmaloka or Satyaloka, all such planets are situated in the material world. Just checking. Okay. Let's see the picture again. There's all the unmarried ladies at the top there. All these different citizens. There's the banana tree, see? The artist gets all the details. I guess these are the unmarried girls here. There are all the people playing the instruments. Okay, sorry. Sutta uvacha tadadirajasya yasho vijrimbhitam gunarasheshar gunavat sabhajitam shata mahabhagavata sadaspate kosharavim praha grinantam archayan. Sutta Goswami continued, O Shanak, leader of the great sages, after hearing Maitreya speak about the various activities of King Pṛthu, the original king, who was fully qualified, glorified, and widely praised all over the world, Vidura, the great devotee, very submissively worshipped Maitreya Rishi and asked him the following questions. Vidura uvacha Sobhishikta Pṛthurviprar Labdashesha Surarhana Bibratsa Vaishnavam Tejo Bhavur Yabhyam Dudohagam. Vidura said, My dear Brahman Maitreya, it is very enlightening influence upon personally receiving the strength from Lord Vishnu. Thus he greatly developed the earth. Purport. Because Pṛthu Mahārāja was an empowered incarnation of Lord Vishnu and was naturally a great Vaishnava devotee of the Lord, all the demigods were pleased with him and presented different gifts to help him in exercising his royal power. And the great sages and saintly persons also joined in his coronation. Thus blessed by him, he ruled over the earth and exploited and exploited its resources for the greatest satisfaction of the people in general. This has already been explained in the previous chapters regarding the activities of King Pṛthu. As will be apparent from the next verse, every executive head of state should follow in the footsteps of Maharaj Pṛthu in ruling over his kingdom. Regardless of whether the chief executive is a king or president, or whether the government is monarchical or democratic. This process is so perfect that if it is followed, everyone will become happy, and thus it will be very easy for all to execute devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Konvasya kirtim nashinoti abhigyo yar vikramochishtam ashesha bhupa lokasapala upajivanti kamam adyapitan me vadakarma shuddham. Pṛthu Mahārāja was so great in his activities and magnanimous in his method of ruling that all the kings and demigods on the various planets still follow in his footsteps. Who is there who will not try to hear about his glorious activities? I wish to hear more and more about Pṛthu Mahārāja because his activities are so pious and auspicious. Purport. Saint Vidura's purpose in hearing about Pṛthu Mahārāja over and over again was to set an example for ordinary kings and executive heads, who should all be inclined to hear repeatedly about Pṛthu Mahārāja's activities in order to also be able to rule over their kingdoms or states very faithfully for the peace and prosperity of the people in general. Unfortunately, at the present moment, no one cares to hear about Pṛthu Mahārāja or to follow in his footsteps. Therefore, no nation in the world is either happy or progressive in spiritual understanding, although that is the sole aim and objective of human life. Maitreya uvacha Ganga yamunor nadyor antarakshetama avasan arabdhan eva bhuje bhogan punya jihasaya. The great saintly sage Maitreya told Vidura, "My dear Vidura, King Pṛthu lived in the tract of land between the two great rivers, Ganges and the Yamuna. Because he was very opulent, it appeared that he was enjoying his destined fortune in order to diminish the results of his pious activities." Purport. The terms pious and impious are applicable only in reference to the activities of an ordinary living being. But Maharaj Pṛthu was a directly empowered incarnation of Lord Vishnu. Therefore, he was not subject to the reactions of pious or impious activities. As we have already explained previously, when a living being is specifically empowered by the Supreme Lord to act for a particular purpose, he is called a Shaktivesh avatar. Pṛthu Mahārāja was not only a Shaktivesh avatar, but also a great devotee. A devotee is not subjected to the reactions resulting from past deeds. In the Brahma Samhita it is said, Karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajam. For devotees, the results of past pious and impious activities are nullified by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The words arabdhan eva mean as if achieved by past deeds. But in the case of Pṛthu Mahārāja, there is no question of reaction to past deeds. There is no question of reaction to past deeds, and thus the word eva is used here to indicate comparison to ordinary persons. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Avajananti mam muda. This means that sometimes people misunderstand an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be an ordinary man. The Supreme Godhead, his incarnations, or his devotees may pose themselves as ordinary men, but they are never to be considered as such. Nor should an ordinary man not be supported by authorized statements of the Shastras and Acharya. Nor should an ordinary man not be supported by authorized statements of the Shastras and Acharyas, be accepted as an incarnation or devotee. Oh God. Anyways, you understood what I said, right? My intonation is wrong. By the evidence of Shastra, Sanatana Goswami detected Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be a direct incarnation of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. although Lord Chaitanya never disclosed this fact. It is therefore generally recommended that the Acharya or Guru should not be accepted as an ordinary man. Sarvatras kalita desha saptadvipaika dandadrik anyatra brahmana kular anyatra chutagotrata. Maharaj Pṛthu was an unrivaled king and possessed the scepter for ruling all the 7 islands. Scepter, who bestowed him the scepter? Was that Shiva? No, I forgot. I think Shiva gave him the scepter. Anyways, he possessed the scepter for ruling all the 7 islands on the surface of the globe. No one could disobey his irrevocable orders but the saintly persons, the Brahmins, and the descendants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so those people could disobey his irrevocable orders, huh? Purport. Saptadvip refers to the 7 great islands or continents on the surface of the globe. 1. Asia. 2. Europe. 3. Africa. 4. North America. 5. South America. 6. Australia. And 7. Oceania? That just refers to the ocean? Anyways. Wait, let me see if I can look this up. A great area that encompasses the islands of the Pacific Ocean and adjacent seas. Okay. Oceania. I don't know how you say it. In the modern age, people are under the impression that during the Vedic period, or the prehistoric ages, America and many other parts of the world had not been discovered. But that is not a fact. Pṛthu Mahārāja ruled over the world many thousands of years before the so-called prehistoric age, and it is clearly mentioned here that in those days, not only were all the different parts of the world known, but they were ruled by one king, Maharaj Pṛthu. The country where Pṛthu Mahārāja resided must have been India, because it is stated in the 11th verse of this chapter that he lived in a tract of land between the river Ganges and Yamuna. This tract of land, which is called Brahmavarta, consists of what is known in the modern age as portions of Punjab in northern India. It is clear that the kings of India once ruled all the world, and that their culture was Vedic. The word askalita indicates that the orders by the king could not be disobeyed by anyone in the entire world. Such orders, however, were never issued to control saintly persons or descendants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. The Supreme Lord is known as Achyuta, and Lord Krishna is addressed as such by Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, Senayor ubayor madhe ratangsta paramechyuta. Achyuta refers to one who does not fall because he is never influenced by the modes of material nature. When a living entity falls down to the material world from his original position, he becomes Chuta, which means that he forgets his relationship with Achyuta. Actually, every living entity is a part and parcel, or a son of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When influenced by the modes of material nature, a living entity forgets this relationship and thinks in terms of different species of life. But when he again comes to his original consciousness, he does not observe such bodily designations. This is indicated in Bhagavad Gita 5.18 by the words Pandita Samadarshina. Material designations create differentiation in terms of caste, color, creed, nationality, etc. Different gotras or family designations are distinctions in terms of the material body. But when one comes to Krishna consciousness, he immediately becomes one of the Achyuta Gotra, or descendants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus he becomes transcendental to all considerations of caste, creed, color, and nationality. Pṛthu Mahārāja had no control over the Brahmakul, which refers to the learned scholars in Vedic knowledge, nor over the Vaishnavas, who are above the considerations of Vedic knowledge. It is therefore said, Arche Vishnu Shiladir, Gurushu Naramatir, Vaishnave Jati Budir, Vishnur va Vaishnavanam Kalimala Matane Padatirtam Padatirtem Buddhi. Shri Vishnur Namni Mantre Sakala Kalushahe Shabda Samanya Buddhir. Vishnu Sarveshwareshe Taditara Samadhir Yasya Va Narakisa. One who thinks the deity in the temple to be made of wood or stone, who thinks of the spiritual master in the disciplic succession as an ordinary man, who thinks the Vaishnav in the Uchuta Gotra to belong to a certain caste or creed, or who thinks of Charnamrita or Ganges water as ordinary water, is taken to be a resident of hell. Padma Puran. From the facts presented in this verse, it appears that people in general should be controlled by a king until they come to the platform of Vaishnavas and Brahmins, who are not under the control of anyone. Brahman refers to one who knows Brahman, or the impersonal feature of the absolute truth, and a Vaishnav is one who serves the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Interesting. Ekadasi. What verse are we reading up to? We're reading up to 20. Oh my God. Okay. Ekadasi mahasatra dikshatra divokasam samajo brahmarshinam cha rajarshinam cha sattama. Once upon a time, King Pṛthu initiated the performance of a very great sacrifice in which great saintly sages, Brahmins, demigods from higher planetary systems, and great saintly kings known as Rajarshis all assembled together. Purport. In this verse, the most significant point is that although King Pṛthu's residential quarters were in India, between the rivers and Ganges and Yamuna, the demigods also participated in the great sacrifice he performed. This indicates that formerly the demigods used to come to this planet feet of the visitors. Similarly, Maharaj Pṛthu also arranged for the proper reception of the demigods, the saintly sages, the Brahmins, and the great kings. Could you imagine Krishna washing the feet of saintly persons? Prangshu pinayata bhujo gora kanjarunekshana sunasa sumukha somya pinangsa sudvija smita. King Pṛthu's body was tall and sturdy, and his complexion was fair. His arms were full and broad, and his eyes as bright as the rising sun. His nose was straight, his face very beautiful, and his personality grave. His teeth were set beautifully in his smiling face. Purport. Amongst the four social orders, Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras, the Kshatriyas, both men and women, are generally very beautiful. As will be apparent from the following verses, it is to be concluded that not only were Maharaj Pṛthu's bodily features attractive as described here, but he had specific all auspicious signs in his bodily construction. It is said, the face is the index of the mind. One's mental constitution is exhibited by his facial features. The bodily features of a particular person are exhibited in accordance with his past deeds. For according to one's past deeds, his next bodily features, whether in human society, animal society, or demigod society, are determined. This is proof of the transmigration of the soul through different types of bodies. Vyuravaksha brihatronir vali valgo dalodara avartana bhiru ojasvi kancha norur udagrapat. The chest of Maharaj Pṛthu was very broad, his waist was very thick, and his abdomen, wrinkled by lines of skin, resembled in construction a leaf of a banyan tree. His navel was coiled and deep, his thighs were of golden hue, and his instep was arched. What's instep? The part of a person's foot between the ball and the ankle. That's very specific. Shukshma vakrasita snigdha murtaja kambukandara mahadhane dukulagre paridhayo paviyacha. The black, slick hair on his head was very fine and curly, and his neck, like a conch shell, was decorated with auspicious lines. He wore a very valuable dhoti, and there was a nice wrapper on the upper part of his body. Upaviya means the Brahman thread, right? I think the wrapper refers to a Brahman thread. Not a Brahman thread. Yeah, thread. Anyhow, let's see. Vyanjita sheshagatra shirniyame nyastabhushana Krishna jina dhara shriman kushapani kritochita. As Maharaj Pṛthu was being initiated to perform the sacrifice, he had to leave aside his valuable dress, and therefore his natural bodily beauty was visible. It was very pleasing to see him put on black deerskin and wear a ring of kusha grass on his finger, for this increased the natural beauty of his body. It appears that Maharaj Pṛthu observed all the regulative principles before he performed the sacrifice. Shishira snigdata raksha samaikshata samantata uchivan idamur visha sadasang harshayan iva. Just to encourage the members of the assembly and to enhance their pleasure, King Pṛthu glanced over them with eyes that seemed like stars in the sky wet with dew. He then spoke to them in a great voice. We're ending with this verse here. Charu chitra padam shlakshnam vrishtam gudam aviklavam sarvesham upakarartham tada anuvadan iva. Maharaj Pṛthu's speech was very beautiful, full of metaphorical language, clearly understandable and very pleasing to hear. His words were all grave and certain, and it appears that when he spoke, he expressed his personal realization of the absolute truth in order to benefit all who were present. Purport. Maharaj Pṛthu was beautiful in his external bodily features, and his speech was also very glorious in all respects. His words, which were nicely composed in highly metaphorical ornamental language, were pleasing to hear, and were not only mellow, but also very clearly understandable, and without doubt or ambiguity. My God, the last sentence we're reading, I'm having a hard time. They were pleasing to hear, and were not only mellow, but also very, very clearly understandable, and without doubt or ambiguity. So tomorrow, we will read instructions of Pṛthu Mahārāja to the citizens, and Pṛthu establishes the glories of the Brahmins and Vaishnavas. Actually, no, we're just going to read the instructions of Pṛthu Mahārāja. This part will be the day after tomorrow. Pṛthu establishes the glories of Brahmins and Vaishnavas. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai, Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishto Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashma Chala Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Shri Gurudev Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishto Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashma Chala Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishto Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashma Chala Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishto Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashma Chala Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishto Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashma Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishta Mahā-Bhagavat Srila Gokisharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishta Vaishnav Sarva Nitil Pravishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishta Vaishnav Sarva Bhoma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai, Shri Rupanuv Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai, Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jeev Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath Shara Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai, Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vaja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai, Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kund Ki Jai, Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai, Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya Ki Jai, Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Oh, and for those of you, for me, Akshaya Tritiya is beginning tomorrow on the 15th. But for, I think, lots of people in Vrindavan and other places, Akshaya Tritiya begins tomorrow. Sorry, today. Today is Akshaya Tritiya. So, Akshaya Tritiya ki jai, Chandan Yatra ki jai, opening of the doors of the Sri Badri Narayan temple ki jai, first day of Satya Yuga ki jai, Shri Parshuram Jayanti ki jai, Shri Gauriya Vedanta Samiti, how do you say, Stapan? I don't know. Divas ki jai, the anniversary day of Shri Gauriya Vedanta Samiti's inauguration in 1941. Shri Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat pranams. Okay, and Dhira Mataji says that in Vrindavan also it's tomorrow for Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Okay, cool. And this evening, I'm going to start... Well, I need to check out the book first, but... one second, I have to sneeze. I am going to... I think I'm going to start reading from the book The Heart of Krishna tonight, maybe. I'm going to read this article by my Gurudev, Prem Vivarta, Love Reversed, And then if there's an introduction, then I'll read the introduction today for The Heart of Krishna by Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj, all on the topic of Vaishnava Aparad. And I'm also starting something which I wrote on Facebook the other day, and I also announced last night. But I'm going to start a 100-day challenge. And if anybody wants to do this on Akshay Tritiya, starting this Akshay Tritiya with me, you can also do it. You pick any challenge you want. It could be anything. I'm doing writing. I'm going to write above 200 words every day. And if I can manage that for some time, then I'll increase it to 300 words, and then 400, and so on. But if anybody wants to do any challenge, it could be reading something devotional, finding an inspirational quotes by one of our acharyas every day. Or it could be taking a picture every day on your phone, or drawing a little something. I don't know, there's tons of ideas. You can cook something different every day, or whatever. There's as many options. You could get creative, think of whatever you want. But it should be something that's very easy so that you can maintain it. And then what I'm doing, this is actually like a very standard thing that lots of people do, 100-day challenges. There's like a whole community for it. But and so what you do is you post wherever on social media, you post what day you're on, and then 100, and then you make a hashtag of what your thing is. So I'm gonna write 1 of 100 hashtag, what is it? 100 days, 200 words. That's going to be my hashtag, but you can make the hashtag whatever you want. And so yeah, if anybody wants to do that with me, that would be fun to do it with somebody else, and I'm not just doing it alone. All right. And I'm thinking now, we're going to be reading about Vaishnava Aparad for the next few days in the evening. And so maybe I'll write about Vaishnava Aparad also. That's a really important topic. Anyways, I'm just going to leave it open. All right. Haribo. Jai Shri Radhe.